Well, it's me again. I think this is episode 45. And let me tell you about my Friday from hell. So as I'm recording this, today is August 3rd, 2024, Saturday. And the Friday from hell that I'm referencing is yesterday, August 2nd. So I typically, in my IT business, it is known to my clients that Friday is an off day for me, unless they have a major emergency, something that just absolutely cannot wait, because most of the time I'm not immediately available for them to contact, because every other Friday pretty much I'm out in the yards cutting the grass, doing what I need to do. And I usually try to do that in the early morning hours because of the heat. And before that, I'm going and I'm picking up groceries. We get our groceries from Walmart Supercenter. We have two locations here that we can get our groceries. We have the Walmart Supercenter, which is on the west side of town. And then we have the Walmart Marketplace, which is actually closer. And up until about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, we traditionally would go to the Marketplace. But we started running into some issues with them, not having a lot of stuff, because it is a smaller Walmart. They don't carry all of the same things, of course, that a Supercenter would. And they were having severe personnel issues. So even though it does take us longer for us to go over to the Supercenter on the west side of the county, for the most part, the experience has been positive. Now, this past Friday, yesterday, as I'm recording this, as I said, I had something pre-planned for a client of mine, because usually about one Friday out of the month, or one Friday out of every 6 weeks, they typically do not see patients. This is not going to violate any HIPAA, but this is a dentist office. They're one of my larger clients, and so we were upgrading their patient software. And in the past, this has been a time-consuming endeavor. Generally, we've waited a couple of revisions, because we would go through and there'd be some issues, and so we'd wait and let it break everybody else, and then we would do the upgrade, and there'd be a database upgrade process that can take 20, 30 minutes, and you're on pins and needles if it's even going to be successful or not. Last time I did this, we're upgrading the version. Yesterday, we were upgrading to version 24. Prior to that, and I think it was earlier this year, so this is something unusual for us to do this many upgrades on this software in this short amount of time. When I upgraded to version 23, I ran into a problem where I was on the phone with that company's tech support for about 2 hours. Eventually, we got it resolved, and I knew what caused it, so I was getting ready. I knew what I had to do. I was getting in the zone. Well, you know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men. Let's just say, Mother Nature apparently had a different itinerary. Of course, we're in the summer months now. Where August and September are really the months where we're going to start seeing a lot of tropical storms, potential hurricanes forming, and a lot of times kicking the shit out of Florida. And sometimes, we get caught in that same, heel of the boot, if you will. We're not there yet, but yesterday morning, I'm going to say around 7 o'clock, just out of the blue, thunderstorms. And I mean heavy, heavy thunderstorms. And of course, with thunderstorms and lightning and slightly elevated winds, you start having little power blips. And of course, we started having little power blips. And then I get a text. Of course, my phone's on Do Not Disturb. My cell phone's on Do Not Disturb until 8:30, except for a very select few people. And I just happened to notice I got a text from a person at one of my other clients. We don't have any phones, and the internet's down. Well, I'm thinking, shit. I've got this stuff planned today. I got to get out to get the groceries, and as soon as I get back, I got a target date of 10 o'clock to start this upgrade process, and I can already feel how everything is just coming off the rails. So Fortunately, I quickly discovered that this person was incorrect. Their phones were not working in their office, and the internet was perfectly fine. And I told them, and they're a friend of mine, but I told them, I called them on their cell phone. I said, look, you're going to have to help me troubleshoot this because there's no way I can come out there anytime soon. I've got this other thing that I got to do. So unless your network is completely imploding and burning to the ground, I cannot come out there. So they were like, yeah, no problem. I told them what to look for. They found it, reset it. Everything was fine. All right. So it's storming like hell. And I'm looking at the weather map and I'm like, okay, hopefully by the time we get to the west side of the county, this will have lightened up. So my daughter and I, because she always goes with me, we left about 8:15, somewhere between 8:10 and 8:15. We get to Walmart. We're pulling into the pickup side. Normally, there's no more. Sometimes there's nobody there. Usually, there's no more than 3 or 4 people, and we always park in like slot 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. We had to park in slot 9 because there was already like 8 people there, 7 or 8 people, and I was like, okay, I knew that we were probably going to be a little delayed because I don't expect these people to risk their lives especially when it's raining like hell and it's just constantly lightning. I don't expect them to risk their lives to give me my groceries. Of course not. I wouldn't. So we sat there and the rain was just pelting the hell out of the roof of the vehicle and the hood. And the funny thing was there was a person that was parked in slot 10. And as the rain we went into a slight lull. I don't know how long she'd been there, but she got out of her car. And she goes over to the double doors. Now, you got to have a badge to be able to get the doors to open. So she just stood there and she starts waving at somebody. Anyway, the doors open. A Walmart employee comes out, talks to her. And the next thing I know, they bring her groceries out. She picks her shit up and carries it to her car herself and leaves. And I'm like, well, okay, you got to be somewhere. I get it. And so I'm like, okay, well, the last time I had to wait any considerable amount of time to pick my groceries up was back during the early stages of the pandemic. And, everybody was trying to get their groceries picked up. I remember going to the marketplace and sitting there for 45 minutes waiting. And that they have limited parking space. So I literally had to park in a regular parking spot and wait for somebody to move so I could slide in and then say, I'm here and I'm in slot whatever. So we continue to wait. And that lull passes, and the rain picks up again, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see, maybe I'm going to see a pattern here. It probably rains hard for another 10 minutes, and then we see a lull again. And I'm like, okay, all right, now's the time. Because by this point, we've had additional people show up, and they've started parking in the parking spots behind us. And I'm like, okay, you guys can do this. I know y'all got ponchos. You've talked about how bad they are. I completely agree. Walmart needs a canopy. They need to cover this entire area with a canopy. Put solar panels on the top of it. Generate some damn power. But put a canopy here so that you can get your groceries no matter whether it's hot as hell outside and the sun's bearing down, or you got a freaking hurricane coming through. Okay, maybe not the hurricane, but you get my point. So we're in this lull, and Oriana and I we're looking. Nobody's. You can see people walking back and forth inside, but not a single damn person is coming out to start dropping off groceries. And then the rain picks up again. We go through this there's probably at least 3 lulls, and during these other lulls, people are getting out of their cars and going up and trying to get people's attention, and somebody will come out, they'll talk, and then the person will go back and get in their car. I think we're at about an hour at this point. And the funny thing is I don't know if this is on some kind of timer or if they do this because otherwise it'll look bad on their numbers. But of course, the app notifies us, hey, your groceries have been delivered to you or brought out or whatever, which they had not. Now, normally, I've only had this happen a couple of times, and that's usually an indication that the person is going to be out within the next 2 to 3, 4 minutes. 30 minutes later, we finally start having some movement. The rain has subsided somewhat. we've already had people, and this is something they were having to contend with, we already had people that gave the hell up and left. And so there were at least 2 or 3 instances where they'd bring out groceries, and then they'd have to take them back because the person sitting in the slot now is not the person that was there to pick up the groceries, because they said, fuck this noise, and left. Now, you can imagine, if you know me, I've gotten more patient over the years, but I am still not a very patient person. And at this point, I was literally fit to be tied. I can tell you this, I was more patient this time around than I would have been pre-alcohol retirement. Because whatever residual alcohol was in my system at that point, I would have made a complete ass of myself and whole. And not only that, I mean, I was trying to, look, I understand. I would not want to be in their situation. I completely understand it. I get it. But what we didn't, and my daughter and I both agreed, there was no communication. They should have at least come out and tried to tell people, hey, motion, get everybody to roll your windows down and say, look, we're running behind. We're going to try to get your groceries out as soon as possible, blah, blah, blah. No communication whatsoever. None. I even tried to call the number because, I use the app to do all of that. I tried to call the number. Nobody was picking up. That's poor customer service right there. I've only had that happen one other time that I've had to call, and that was at the marketplace, and nobody answered. I wound up calling the main number. And it took them several minutes for them to finally let me know that there wasn't anybody in that department at the time. They literally had to pull somebody off the floor because nobody had shown up to work that day to be able to dispense groceries. Yet the pickers have been picking, but there was nobody to actually carry them out because apparently it's two different people. Sometimes there's cross-pollination between them, but that's my understanding. And yes, I am a former Walmart employee. I worked in the Walmart Garden Center in Fitzgerald, Georgia in 1989. I've also worked for 2 years in a Walmart distribution center in Douglas, Georgia. I know Walmart. I know it's changed over the years, but I can speak as a former Walmart employee. All of this was fucked up. So the lady finally, she comes out, and I roll the window down, and we verify the name, and she's like, I just had to make sure because we've had a lot of people leave. And I said, yeah, I understand. And she apologized, and I was not cruel or anything. I said, look, I completely understand. I was not going to get into a conversation as, well, you should have been more communicative and let us know what was going on. I was like, fuck it. I just want to get my groceries because by this point, we're approaching 10 o'clock. Okay, we're approaching the deadline of when I needed to start doing my upgrade. Well, during this, I was notified by my client their power was out. Okay, well, that gives me a little bit of time, but that also causes me some other problems because I had 44 computers I needed to remote into. And with the power going out and only the server and maybe 1 or 2 like laptops that would survive a power outage, that meant I was going to have to make sure that they would go around and turn them all back on. Then I found out our power was out. So when Oriana and I got home, we got home to Lee and a dark house. So we got all the groceries out. My UPSs had done all they could. They couldn't keep the internet up. Well, Tyler, because we've done this before back in 2017 and 2018 when the hurricanes were coming through and we didn't have power for a couple of days. Tyler recently bought this huge, marine-type battery. Motherfucker is 60 pounds. I literally had to get a hand truck and wheel that thing around. So I've had it out here in my office, trickle charging, keeping it charged. So I come out here and I grabbed it and I wheeled it to the house. Luckily, it's got a strap on it. And I took it into our utility room where we've now got all our revamped stuff, the floor rack is actually on in the carport, under the carport, and everything is now wall mounted in a rack at a shelving unit and then a small little table. So I took his inverter, hooked it up to the battery, and plugged everything up that was absolutely needed for internet access. And once all that came back up, because of the type of connection I have, fortunately, if the power is out here, it's a fiber-to-the-home variant called RFOG. There are no active electronics between here and the head end. So as long as I can power up my side and the head end still has power, I got internet. So we ran like that probably for about 10, 15 minutes. It gave me a chance to, use my laptop, check some stuff, because the power finally came back on at my client. And then about 10 or 15 minutes later, like I said, our power came back on, and so then I had to get everything swapped over. So about 11 o'clock, I started working on the upgrade. And I made sure the server had all the Windows updates. I rebooted like you're supposed to. I started the install. I went through the process of making sure all of these services that could interfere with the upgrade were disabled temporarily. They were all shut down. I did the install. It had to reboot again, which, I was like, okay, dumbass, you needed to wait until that reboot. So I rebooted again. It came up, and that server takes a few minutes to reboot because it's a hoss. And I remoted in, and instead of getting what I expected to be hey, this upgrade's going to take a while, blah, 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 no, I got the server screen, the server DB screen that says, no upgrade needed, you're good. I'm like, wait, this is too easy. Scared the shit out of me. I was like, okay, can this be true? So I logged in using the client software, and sure enough, we were on version 24, and everything worked. I'm like, holy shit. Well, I was like, all right. So I hopped into a workstation, rented the software, and somewhere around about version 20 or 21, I forget, they changed it where you didn't have to go to each machine and manually install. It'll actually, you launch the client, it'll find the server, and the server will tell it, hey, you need to update, and then it'll download it, and it'll do it. Takes about 5 minutes on average. Some of the slower machines can take a little longer. So I did that on the first one, rebooted, logged in, everything's good. I'm like, huh. But one thing I noticed on my dashboard, there were about 14 machines that were saying, hey, the last time we got any communication from these was around about 8 o'clock. So I contacted the practice manager, and I said, hey, I need you to go. I got these machines that I can't get into. So I gave her the list, and supposedly she was going to make sure that they were turned on. Well, I managed to get about 14 of them done, and then the other ones I could not get. And so I'd taken a break for lunch, and I was like, well, I can either go up there in the morning or I can do it this afternoon. Well, also during this thing, we've got other machines that we were replacing, so I got these little mini PCs that are, they're awesome, Price point's good. They're so small, they actually will mount on the back of a monitor that has a standard VESA mount. Excellent. And I got two ready to go. Where I'm literally image the old machine, it's on the new machine, so when the person gets it, they're not going to really see a difference in their environment other than this thing is working way faster than I'm accustomed to. So I was like, okay. The practice manager asked me, she said, do you have these PCs ready to go? And I'm like, yeah. She said, well, the monitors came in. I was like, all right, well, that's cool. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come on up there this afternoon, and I'll get these other machines upgraded, which I discovered they were off. I'll get these machines upgraded, and I'll do these two swap outs. And she's like, cool. So I got up there. She was still there. She left a few minutes later. So I got all the machines upgraded, and then I went out to my car, and I got these little PCs, and I started working on the first setup. I disconnected her PC, and I took one of the monitors because we were only replacing one monitor. She was going to get two 24. She already had an existing 24. She's going to get a new 24. Well, I had instructed the practice manager because I'd gone to Amazon, and we were looking for a particular 22 and 24 inch that had DisplayPort and HDMI and had to have a standard PC style plug, could not have an adapter, because if we wound up getting this same model, particularly the 22s, they put these monitors at the end of the chairs where the patient sits so they can watch TV or whatever. Well, there's a power cable already run there, and so you can't have one of these barrel connectors that goes into the back of the monitor, and then the actual power adapter or transformer is like a brick and then comes down. You can't do that. So we made sure that these were the right type of monitors. Well, whenever I was speccing these things out, I discovered, hey, I can get a single, or they had a 2-pack. This is where I discovered later on that I had fucked up and felt really bad about it. And this just capped off my Friday from hell. I opened the box that had the two monitors in it, and I looked down and I was like, this is neat. They send you two monitors in one box, saves a lot of packaging. I pulled the monitor out, I put it on the countertop face down, I shimmied the protective covering up so that I could put the foot in, and discovered that these monitors, the reason why they were shipped the way they were shipped, they didn't come with stands. The monitor foot was missing, and I had to have the feet on these because we were not putting these on arms or a monitor stand that, the stand would mount to the back of the monitor. I needed it to have the standard foot that it normally would have. 22s and the 24s, neither one of them. These were all designed, as I would later discover, these were sold as head only. Now, I took full responsibility for this. I called the practice manager and I said, look, we got a problem, and here's the problem. I did not realize when I suggested that we buy the 2-pack because it saves you a little bit of money, that they don't come with the feet. They expect you to put these on monitor arms or stands. And to her credit, she was like, all right, well, we can use those at other locations where we don't need the feet. So I'll just order a 24 and a single 24 and a single 22, and we could try this again next week. I said, I am so sorry. I felt really shitty. It's that feeling that the life just literally drains out of you as you're standing there and you're like, okay, and you suddenly realize there's a critical piece to making this monitor actually stand up correctly is missing out of the box. And it's not missing because they screwed up. It's missing because you screwed up. And I kind of explained all this in Signal in the family channel in the chat, and my son Tyler was like, well, that's very nice. And so later Friday evening, I went back and I started scoping over, how did I make this mistake on Amazon? And so I looked at the same monitor, and you go to that page, and it's one of those deals where, you'll have the description, and below it, you might have different options. Single monitor for $119 and change. Dual monitor for $220. So you save a little bit of money by doing it that way. And what we pretty much discovered was I did not notice, and again, this was my bad, and I'll own up to my mistakes. And this has told me a lesson. Fortunately, I have a client that's very understanding, and they aren't screwed because they were going to need these monitors anyway. Just they were going to get them later, but now they have them, so they can go ahead and do what they needed to do. Pay attention. I did not realize that whenever I clicked on the dual monitor setup, that the description changed, because if I'd paid attention to that, I would have recognized that in the title it said head only. And if I'd have scrolled down to where there's a section from the manufacturer, I would have read in the first paragraph where it said, these do not come with stands. So yeah, that just was the cherry on top of my fucked up Friday, Sunday for my Friday from hell. It was, oh my God. And the weird thing is, I already had this unsettling feeling Thursday night that, see, we've put in a sales order to upgrade their internet service. Now, for them to do that, they've got to make some slight infrastructure changes. And I flat out told them that the only time this could happen would be on a Friday afternoon after 2, but it could not happen on August 2nd because I had this massive upgrade I needed to do, and I needed to be able to have internet access or remote in, because the whole plan was I was never going to go up there. I mean, it's only about 15 minutes from my house, but I was not going to go up there. But I wound up doing it anyway. And I'm glad I did it yesterday instead of waiting until this morning and discovering my fuck up on the monitors. But I was afraid that they weren't going to pay attention to the sales order where the sales guy, which is a friend of mine, had put on there, they had to contact me before they did anything. So I had this unsettling feeling that this was the way the universe was going to go on Friday. Fortunately, I don't know, hopefully it was due to the weather or whatever, they didn't do their potential nonsense, but everything else decided to just fall the hell apart. And I even made a comment to one of the ladies that was still there. She was calling patients and making sure they were aware of when their appointments were and what have you. I told her, I said, it's a damn good thing that I don't drink anymore. And I think it was, let me check the calendar. I was correct. 433 days yesterday. And that's what I told her. I said, I think today is my 433rd day of alcohol retirement. And Of course, she told me congratulations, and that's good, and blah, blah, blah. Because yesterday was one of those days where prior to alcohol retirement, I would have, if I didn't already have it, I would have been down at the liquor store buying a fifth of something because I was not. Yesterday was one of the worst days I've had in a long, long, long time, personally and professionally. So yeah, that's my story. Friday from hell. Oh, and now it's coming up on lunchtime, and Lee just sent me a message a few minutes ago. I'm thinking beef and gravy with mashed potatoes and biscuits for lunch, and that's because I got up this morning and made biscuits. Got a recipe called Grandma's Buttermilk Biscuits. They turned out okay. They didn't rise like I wanted them to, so I'm trying to get back into cooking more like that kind of stuff, and I'm going to try some variations because I do not like store-bought biscuits. I don't like the way they taste. I don't know what it is, but they taste wrong. These turned out to be pretty good. I took one and I actually cooked a sausage patty. I buy these bags. They're almost $10 a bag, or maybe $10 a bag. I buy these just great value thin sausage patties. They're great with pancakes and what have you. So I cooked one of those in the microwave. Only takes a minute. After my biscuits were done, cut a biscuit in half, put some mayo and some cheese, and put a thing on there. And the only thing I was missing was an egg, and I didn't feel like cooking that. So I had me a sausage and cheese biscuit, which wound up costing me less than the ones I have in the freezer that are store-bought. That's what I was looking at, because it cost me about a little over $10 for 8 sausage cheese biscuits, Jimmy Dean's. They're good, but, I was like, well, I can start making biscuits. But anyway, we're coming up on lunch. So that's my story. Yeah. I hope the rest of this weekend goes off without a hitch. Where's some wood? That was me knocking on my own head. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. Hope you're doing well. If you are on your own alcohol retirement journey, let me know how it's going for you. I hope it's going well. And if you're just starting out, trust me, you can do this. So until next time, I'm on Insta and Threads, Don Atkinson. As I said, I'm still on Twitter at that same handle, but I don't ever pay attention to it. I have Facebook, but I don't have any friends on there, and that is by design. I'm only on there to manage pages for Tifton Talks, Radio Tift, and some other stuff. So you can always email me. The email address is don, D-O-N, @callmedonovan.com. So until next time, till we have an opportunity for me to gnaw your ear off vocally, hope you have a great one. Take care.